Aaron, and yes, we do anticipate that address by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga anytime now from the KICC. Good afternoon. My name is Fred Indemuli, coming to you from our city studios. And yes, from polling day 8 days ago, you've kept us company as we continue with Kivumbi 2022, covering everything surrounding the elections of 2022. We're still continuing with that, and today in studio with me, I have Dismas Mukua, political risk analyst, Ishmael Nyaribo, a lawyer and political strategist, and Rafael Obonyo, public policy analyst. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
As we continue anticipating that address by Raila Odinga, a lot has changed with that declaration of the president-elect yesterday. A lot is changing as we saw that committee, that National Security Advisory Committee, reassuring the country of security and saying that the country is at peace after that declaration, and giving a guarantee that going forward, even after the declaration triggered other events, that the country is at peace and everything is under control. So what really are we expecting from Raila Odinga this afternoon, Rafael?
Thank you so very much. I think it's been a long week as we were all waiting for, following the verification, but also waiting for the declaration of the winner. And up to that point, I think all of us felt the process was fairly transparent and open until the point of declaration, where some of the party agents came out. And of course, the commission was split, which also perhaps raised eyebrows. So what are we expecting from Raila Odinga, who is the leader of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance? I think there are a couple of things. One is whether he's going to agree, because there's a bit of the verification. Seems like that is what is raising a lot of concerns on the credibility, fairness, and whether the process was transparent. So we are waiting to hear if he's going. He has maybe is going to say agree that the election was free and fair, and that perhaps what happened was that they lost fairly. That is one. We are also perhaps expecting that he might dispute the results and say that the election was not free and fair, and they'll be taking a new course, of course, going to the Supreme Court to challenge the declaration. And that will have some effect because his support base is waiting for him, like they would say, to give direction. So all of us are waiting for him to give direction.
Wakili Nyaribo, if you were to advise Raila Odinga right now between the two scenarios that Rafael Obonyo has painted here, what would you advise him to do as he goes to address the country now?
Well, I think he hasn't asked me to be advisor at all. I would have advised him. But number one, and most importantly, I expect that Baba will come out and tell people to be completely peaceful and go about their daily work, because the elections have been done. Voting has been done, campaigns were done, voting has been done, tallying has been done, and a declaration has been made that his opponent became the president-elect. And this morning, the deputy president-elect was actually gazetted by the state through the IEBC. I expect him to tell Kenyans that. Number two, I expect that Baba will come out and say that the elections as held were free and fair. Howsoever, he probably has concerns with how the actual verification was done. That way, it will make us understand that we did our homework as we were instructed to vote, and thereafter, somebody, maybe an individual or two or three, mishandled his results. That will keep the country united and peaceful so that we all go back to work. And I expect him also to say that all legal processes and constitutional steps will be taken to ensure that any grievances that are, held by him will actually be taken to the courts, and we will give the Supreme Court enough time and the other courts enough time to arbitrate the disputes. Lastly, Fred, and more importantly for his supporters, I hope Baba will come out and say, I had all opportunity to do what I needed to do and to outsmart the Kenya Kwanza team. And why did it need to happen? Because he had all the opportunity, including state resources, including extremely intelligent and good people around him. How it did not work, that is what you can hear, his supporters saying. Whether you look at the clips coming from Kisumu, clips coming from Kondele, Migori, his strong base. People are asking, forget who actually won these elections for a moment. People expected Raila Odinga to do very well. And I'm not trying to inflict any more pain than many of us are experiencing in terms of having supported the cause and manifesto, brought forward by Baba. But there is a different set of fact now that William Ruto has been declared the president-elect. So Baba needs to come out and say, irrespective of all this goodwill I had from all quarters, what might have gone wrong, if it is not that verification, yes, so to say, what might have gone wrong that a first-comer to the presidential contest actually caught up with me? Forget even winning, but how did this particular deputy president of the republic catch up with me? Forget winning, how did he even catch up with me? So I think the supporters want to hear that. Who did not do his homework? Okay. And I expect him to say, if he has any problem with the advisors around him, this is what will assuage the pain in his supporters. Yes,
of course, Raila Odinga, according to the IEBC tally, got 6,900,000 plus. The difference between him and the president-elect was 233,000 votes. This is the fifth time he will be standing before the nation as unsuccessfully contesting for the presidency. What do you think is going on in his mind right now? What do you tell the nation?
Mr. Raila Odinga has done very well. But as he prepares to come on stage and talk to the nation, he has two choices. One, to accept the results and give a concession speech and probably say that I've done very well for Kenya, attempted 5 times and failed 5 times. So I'm taking a break and handing over the baton to a new generation of leaders. There's Governor Joe, there's Governor Paranya, there's Junet Mohamed. There's a host of people, Governor Ngwai, who can take over the political party, or reject the results and say that he's going to the Supreme Court on account maybe of the mathematics. And the 4 commissioners said that there was something opaque, but their statement was actually very opaque because they didn't tell us exactly what was opaque. We need a full disclosure. And in my view, those 4 commissioners, if they smelt a rat in the entire process A to Z, they should actually go and swear affidavits so that we get to understand their story. Now, their behavior yesterday was, number one, irrational, emotional, unpatriotic, and a threat to our national security. Because I've seen those commissioners at bombers all along. And when they want to disrupt a declaration, they must disrupt it with very solid facts. Very solid facts. So they need to give us a sworn affidavit before a competent lawyer like Lawyer Ishmailia so that we can start taking their word to the bank. But if you just call a news conference before the declaration and you said that the chairperson or the process was opaque, now what is the definition of opaque? Should we take the English definition or the legal definition of opaque?
Okay. And you've very quickly left the issue that we were discussing and moved to the IEBC, which we will discuss because the split within the IEBC and whether or not the commission is jinxed is a topic that could go on the entire day. But today, because of the address that we're anticipating now, and even talking about the opacity that the commissioners talked about yesterday, with this address, Raila Odinga could actually give grounding to those claims or dismiss them altogether. And that is the anticipation we have. And probably that is what we should be talking about right now. Do you really think that Raila Odinga stands to gain more by standing his ground, probably backing the commissioners and going to court?
Well, from a normal Kenyan who's been watching this process for the last 1 week, IEBC has demonstrated a very high level of transparency, because they've told us if you're looking for any single form, it's resident at the portal. Nobody has come up with evidence to contradict the IEBC position that the forms as are uploaded in Mosocho or Elwak Mandera are not the same forms that are at Uchaguzi Center. Nobody has contradicted that. So without any contradiction, without anybody placing the evidence on the table, people are going to take Chebukati's word to the bank. Because nobody has come and said that there was mischief. In fact, before the disruption yesterday, if you tell people to, if you had an opinion poll on IEBC or a perception survey, Chebukati would be scoring probably 9 out of 10. The 1 mark is because of his inability to keep time. But he has largely demonstrated to Kenyans that the system was very transparent. And even for the Deputy President, William Ruto, after the interview, after the declaration, indicated that every single Kenyan had access to the results. And by the time they were going to bomb us, every single Kenyan knew who the president-elect is. So it's not as if ABC has been engaging in some sort of voodoo tallying or voodoo processes. No. Everything has been in the open, which is why anybody who suggests that there is mischief must place information on the table. But in my view, Raila now has got this unique capacity to make a statement which is aligned to our national and public interest. And if he's disputing this thing, then he needs to do it in a very civil manner, go to the Supreme Court. But the most important thing is that his speech, everybody's waiting for his speech, Kenya and globally, and his speech is going to be so important. So when he's making the speech, it must be very clear. He must not keep anybody guessing, because his supporters had invested emotions and resources, and now they are bleeding, they are paining. So there's no room for anybody to misinterpret what he's talking about.
Okay, Raila Odinga, after unsuccessfully contesting for the presidency in 2013, went to court. In 2017, he did the same. In 2022, do you think there's some sense of lethargy from his supporters about this judicial process that comes immediately after the political process, which is the election?
I think, first of all, I don't want to banish or rather demonize any possibility of going to court. I think there is an important reason why people go to court. In fact, if you look at the progress we've made in terms of our electoral process, has also come as a result of some of those rulings that have been done by the Supreme Court. Remember, something like verification and tallying is not necessarily something that IEBC would have wanted to do the way it's been done. I'm sure IEBC would have wanted to maybe just receive the hard copies of Forms 34As and proceed with the rest of the process without what we saw at Bomas. So there's benefit also going to the Supreme Court, especially if you have an evidence, because that is how we continue to strengthen the electoral process and strengthen our democracy. So I wouldn't say that going to the Supreme Court is a waste of time. So there's a good reason. There's a good reason for that.
The question is, from his supporters, after doing so in 2013, 2017, is there some sense of lethargy that even if we go there right now, we may not get a favorable result? Because from all the instances that a presidential election petition has been filed or that declaration has been challenged, the decision of the court, apart from the last time in 2017 when a repeat election was ordered, which still did not go his way, it rarely goes their way.
Yeah. I mean, there could be some lethargy and some sort of fatigue and people feeling like even if you go to court, chances are we might not get a favorable ruling. And what is a favorable ruling to perhaps the Raila support base would be to declare him the winner. But courts will never do that because that is not within the purview of the courts. The courts can only help us to understand what the process was like, because not many of us who are not at Bomas know exactly what was happening. So the court helps us through the various arguments and representations, help us to understand where were the anomalies. I think that would be important. The other thing would be for the court maybe to nullify the elections and call for a repeat election. But whether, again, a repeat elections will still give us a favorable result, would still give Azimio or Raila a favorable result is something that is neither here nor there, because if the problem was with the electoral body, and it is the same electoral body that is still going to oversee a repeat election, then chances are we might still end up with the same results, and that basically leaves the supporters of Azimio wondering whether even if they were to go to court and the elections are nullified, anything would change.
Yet we would still benefit from a pronouncement from the courts if at all anyone else filed a petition challenging or questioning some happenings within the entire process. Is it necessary to challenge the declaration of the presidential result for us to get the judicial system to actually step in and make some pronouncements?
Fred, when you look at historically where we have come from, it was the decision by the opposition to go to court that has improved both the jurisprudence of electioneering in the country and the decisions being made by the Electoral and Boundaries Commission and all other stakeholders are being made, and we have improved greatly because of the inquiries that have been made in the courts. We need to cut some slack for these commissioners who are complaining, and we will wait for a few more minutes. Probably they have in their sleeves the basis for whether we should go to court or we should not. Because what they have shared with the agents and probably Raila Odinga and William Ruto and the head of state, probably there lie the secrets. So we'll wait and see what is the reason why Raila Odinga would dispute the elections. And like Dismas said, the reasons should be completely cogent and very clear. If they are not, I don't think anybody would be interested in any denial. Now, you have asked whether the citizens are in the lethargic mood, or citizens can be in any mood. It's lawyers who go to the court, and it is judges who listen. And judges, by the way, however miserable a case looks, they are always keen to listen because that is what they're paid for. They have a duty to sit and hear the disputes being brought to them. I think it will be a serious letdown if Raila Odinga does not go to the Supreme Court. And it will be a very serious letdown if he allows his supporters to fight in the street. So it is important, whether for the sake of healing, that Raila Odinga approaches the Supreme Court. But not only that, once he's in the Supreme Court, depending on how the lawyers construct the petition, we are likely to have issues resolved. Which issues? One, how do you manage the Uchaguzi Center? Do you allow every Tom, Dick, and Harry to come to the hall and start fighting, on the counting table? Two, at what point do you make noise as commissioners that there is something wrong going on? I mean, Cherera and Nyangaya and Masit and Wanderi, they were in the hall for 6 days. So if at the fifth day or at the sixth day in the morning, they realized that the commissioner, who is the chairman, and one or two others, or one, they were supposed to make noise. I don't know how that is provided for in the law, but that should be interrogated by the Supreme Court. They were supposed, before the readiness for the results, they had the police. These particular commissioners have security. They were supposed to raise any alarm before the commissioner, the chairman, decides to go on air to announce the results. So simply to sneak back and then go to Serena brings to the fore maybe the gaps that are there within the election laws. When are they supposed to raise issue? Are they supposed to raise alarm by writing some notice or some phone call to who? So I think if Raila Odinga does not go to court, we will still be left where we are. Lastly, Fred, the major problem in our electioneering process has been stealing of the people's votes. And actually that becomes criminal because you are subverting the will of the people of Kenya. Whether it is the state that has been stealing, I saw Mount Kenya Foundation and other people, previously saying we have actually been stealing from Raila Odinga. Whether it is an individual, that needs to be fixed by the Supreme Court. I think that is the last beat that we have not done in the country. Now, Raila Odinga will be saying, I don't know whether he will be saying that the police stole his votes, or a commissioner in the Electoral Commission stole his votes, or William Ruto stole his votes. That is an issue, Fred, that needs to be interrogated so that we know, are we being lied to, or it is true somebody actually interfered. Now, what happens, by the way, when somebody has interfered with the votes? Because you saw people coming to the Uchaguzi Center right before the polling clerks. You know, that is a very serious criminal offense. What is the commission going to do to ensure that people do not come close to the sanctity of the votes being counted? So I tend to think that Honorable Raila Odinga must go to court, pick up the best of the cream of our LSK members, and ensure that they are able to bring all those things out.
Are we not putting too much of a burden on Raila Odinga? With all this demands, we expect a lot of clarity on the electoral interior.
So it's such an important asset that we can use him as a special purpose vehicle for clarity. And then Raila Odinga must not go to court in person. I suspect there are a number of his supporters who are unhappy, who will actually move to court on their own motion. Even members of civil society will move on to court on their own motion. And as the lawyer has indicated, this will be very good for jurisprudence. It will add clarity to the entire process, so that maybe in 2027, everything will be crystal clear that there will be even no need for anybody to go to court. Because my understanding, having spoken to lawyers, the more you go to the Supreme Court, the more clarity you'll have on the presidential election. These judges are actually making law. So everything is going to be very, very clear. So even a judge may even suggest that the results will be declared on the 7th day at 11 o'clock, so that there is a very good clarity. But when you look at those commissioners, there are two sets. The freshly appointed are the ones who've taken what is considered to be a divergent position, and the ones who presided over the other election have taken a different position. And the most important and germane thing is, the moment you take a divergent position and you are seen as a rebel, you've got this national burden. You've got a responsibility to place evidence on the table. We shouldn't expect Raila Odinga at the news conference today to place any evidence on the table unless those commissioners have given him evidence, so that we actually understand. Because whether or not you participated in the electoral process, everybody is interested in a smooth handover from President Kenyatta to the next president, Raila Odinga or William Ruto. Now, if there's any
Actually, William Ruto or Raila Odinga.
Yes. Yeah. If there's any...
It is right now, William Ruto.
Yeah.
No,
that sequence
I was just using age. Now, any encumbrances is unacceptable. Yeah. That is why those commissioners have got a huge burden. And that's why we must keep on insisting that their behavior yesterday was unacceptable. Because you know that your chairman is about to make a declaration, then you sneak out, you go to top of the range restaurants, then you make allegations without substantiating. Because had it not been that Kenya has got very strong institutions, and we've got a population that was exposed to this transparency, there's even a chance that we could have violence in parts, because somebody may easily say, shout in a cinema hall, that somebody has stolen our votes. So in my view, there's no burden on Raila Odinga, or indeed any other citizen. It could be Omtata, before he gets sworn in as a senator, he can actually do these things. Or even Lawyer Nyeribo on his own motion may want to establish clarity and go to court.
But Fred, I also still think there's a burden on Raila Odinga, because he's a presidential candidate, and he had agents at the tallying center. So those agents, the commissioners can also come out, just like any other Kenyan, might come out and say the process was not free and fair. But Raila Odinga, remember, he's a stakeholder in the process. He had his own party agent. So administratively, politically, and legally, those agents can also come out and tell through Raila Odinga what exactly happened, what is part of this process that they felt was not free, was not fair, was not credible. So I think we shouldn't also just put the burden on the commissioners. There are other stakeholders within that space who can also provide the evidence that is required. But I agree with my colleagues that the needs for substantial evidence, solid evidence, if they are to go to the Supreme Court. But again, just emphasizing that if we were to go to the Supreme Court, that would be a positive thing because it helps us to make progress in our electoral process because we are not at the point of
perfection. Let's ask the lawyer in the House because does it make a difference to the judicial system who files a petition? That probably if Raila Odinga files a petition, it is better placed or will get better treatment vis-a-vis civil society, for example.
Supreme Court is quite, I mean, we've all, we agree, it's quite experienced. They've handled this, will be the third time they're handling it. It doesn't matter who brings the issues. For example, the commissioners themselves can decide to say, we were disenfranchised from the process that we are entitled to. And to that extent, we want a declaration that we were not involved in these elections. In the verification process, that is a requirement. That's what we are employed to do. Dismas, like he said, he can actually go to court and say, as a voter, I am completely, affected by the outcome. I voted for this particular, candidate, and he lost because of misconduct by the person we've hired to do his work. Anyone can do that. But the judicial system is not necessarily interested in who does that. Nonetheless, when you look at the psychology of the judges, you see, let's say Omtata takes this brief and goes himself to court. And my brother Obonyo decides, I also want to go to court. You see, without appearing to be in any manner, judgmental or derogatory, judges are human beings. They look at you when you come to the court. That is why people choose advocates. They are like, do I choose this lawyer? I heard a senior government officer one time actually remarking badly about a colleague, that, this colleague is like this or like that. I mean, epithetically. So it is upon Raila Odinga to choose who will either, represent him or he will himself file the petition. But I want to go back to what I said, Fred, earlier, that the burden on Raila Odinga to reassure citizens that, you see, he has been losing when he was all alone with his supporters, faithful supporters. And you can see from the votes he garnered, no one can dispute this, 6.9 plus. And the other gentleman, the deputy president garnered 7.1.
President-elect now.
President-elect actually garnered 7.15 something. What does that tell you? To be honest, if Kenyans were reasonable and logical, these are people who are on the same footing. And my concern, hopefully speaking for those who have pained, who have lost, I need to know, you have all this level of support. How did you allow a person who did not have this level of support not to win, but to catch up with you? So this is the concern of the supporters, and that's why the burden is squarely on him.
Okay, let's take a look at the IEBC now, because what we're seeing with the IEBC, with the cracks witnessed yesterday, is not something new to the Commission. Back in 2018, in April, then IEBC Vice Chairperson Connie Katha and another commissioner, Kurgat and Margaret Mwachanya, they quit the commission and protested what they said was Chebukati's failed leadership. Yes, before that, another commissioner had already quit, and that was Rosalina Kombe, and even fled the country. 5 years later, or 4 years later, we're seeing something similar, a crack right in the middle. What does it say about this commission? Can it ever work together to actually deliver a credible election?
Well, I think there are two things. Number one, for the exiting commissioners, apart from Dr. Kombe, nobody gave an exit report to actually place evidence on the table to tell us that Chebukati is a failed leader, and in my position, this is what he has failed to do. Although in the 2017 elections, the Supreme Court essentially found him incompetent, maybe that is a sign of failed leadership, but the judges gave their reasons. But the rest of these commissioners who've been taking a walk have not actually demonstrated that, in fact, there is a failed leadership. So they needed to tell us what they expected from Chebukati and what Chebukati delivered, so that for Kenyans we are able to understand that variance, so that we can come to the conclusion that this is a failed leadership. And in my view, failed leadership at IEBC is demonstrated by the whether or not there's going to be a presidential petition, the number of petitions, and how successful the petitions are. And in large, I think IBC has done very well. But for these commissioners who have left, they needed to give us those exit reports. That's number one. Number two, the cracks within the commission could suggest that most of these commissioners are probably special purpose vehicles serving cartel interest or serving special interest, that they don't take decisions on their own motion. That there is a chance that powerful personalities who are not in the commission are the ones who drive the agenda when they are making meetings. That is a possibility. Because like for the commissioners yesterday, how come it's only the new ones who expressed a divergent view and the rest were happy with what is happening? So it may be that is what they needed to demonstrate. But again, it's interesting that yesterday Chebukati himself indicated that I've been intimidated, I've been blackmailed, I've been subject to stress, but I've got a constitutional obligation that I must perform. And then also the president-elect Ruto indicated that Chebukati is a hero, is a man of the moment. And as far as Ruto is concerned, this has been the most transparent election. And earlier on in the morning, an election observer group indicated that this election was very, very transparent. And I think a number of lawyers, where Ishmael is a member, have indicated that now we have lawyers who've been doing press-ups. If you've got issues, please go to the courts. So in my view, while he was found incompetent 5 years ago, the last few days he has actually demonstrated that he is up to the mark. And without going to the details, as Bonyo was suggesting, if somebody goes to the Supreme Court, chances are that it may boil down to mathematics. It may boil down to arithmetic. Because all the agents, they have not complained that they've seen a tranche of forms inserted into the system that were absent. That kind of thing has not come out. Even Mr. Odinga, as a chief agent, he declared IBC a scene of crime, but he did not proceed to relevant authorities to report that crime. Even these commissioners who have a divergent view, one would have expected that they would have gone to competent authorities to say that the four of us are commissioners at IBC, we smell a rat. Maybe they would have gone to the nearest police station, which is probably Hadi or Langata or Karen, and make these kind of reports. But in the absence of that information, for us, we are left staring at the dry ceiling, and we will believe Chebukati till anybody confirms otherwise.
Okay, but looking at the electoral commissions in history, the Electoral Commission of Kenya under Samuel Kivuitu, IEC and Isaac Hassan, later IEBC, and now Chebukati. Surely, do you think that the job that this commission does is simply impossible, that you cannot make people happy, however well you do the job?
It's a tough job for electoral bodies here in Kenya, because most of our elections are fairly high stake. So the referee has to grapple with the political issues as well as administrative issues. You've had the various electoral bodies, successive electoral bodies, complaining about the issue of funding. But I think there are a few issues here that we need to talk about in terms of electoral body. One is, for us to achieve election integrity, then we must have the right body in place. And right body means the institution, but also the people in there. And there are various principles. For example, one of the principles that IEBC is supposed to adhere to is the independence. They need to be as independent as they possibly can. They shouldn't take direction or control from anyone. I think that is very, very important. But also, they should be faithful to the Constitution, but also loyal to the people. The sovereignty of the people is something they really need to guard, because, like Wakili did say, vote is a sacred element which need to be guarded. And since all of us cannot be at the tallying center, we are relying on electoral bodies. So they really need to ensure that truly they take into consideration the sovereignty of the people. As it stands, and especially with this particular commission, and we are yet to get more evidence from the various commissioners, they need to really tell us, when they talk about opaque, what does opaque mean? Opaque can mean anything. What do they mean by opaque? So that is my concern with the four commissioners when they talk about generalities when Kenyans want specific. The other thing is, we've seen, while we've lauded IEBC for some positive progress that have been made, there have also been things that have raised eyebrows. For example, we've seen a couple of things that have raised eyebrows, but all these commissioners acted like they were taking collective responsibility. They didn't come out, and I think it was a bit irresponsible for them to come out at the tail end, at the very end, with some these very wild allegations that are not substantiated. So if truly there was a problem within in the process, I think we should have seen it building up, and we should have seen them raising their voices, not to wait until the very end. So I think it's a bit of, they were a bit unfair to the public who entrusted them with a huge responsibility, because they didn't give us any indication. They promised
to issue a comprehensive statement. Yes. But coming to the chairperson yesterday when he was making the address, just as he was about to declare the president-elect, the chairperson also reminded Kenyans that this is the very last election he'll be presiding over. You could almost see a sense of relief because he said, his term is ending in the next few months. Is it a job you would take?
I think, Fred, before yesterday, Mr. Chebukati had successfully convinced Kenyans that IEBC is a good employer, is a place to look forward to work, especially on how he came out the first day and said, I have no other results, the results are on the portal, and the way he was updating people every time. Until 28 constituencies or so were remaining to report the elections, the verified reports. I am not sure if those 28 were actually read out by the commissioners.
No, they were not. He said, the chairperson actually said that all the results that we've used to make this declaration are on the portal.
That's okay. But we had about 240 that they read to us. But the remaining 28, they did not read to us. There lies the issue. And I think, I'm not suggesting anything because I don't know what is in what is in those 28 constituencies. Let them bring out. And as I said, we have to give room to these commissioners to come out and confirm to us why they went out. There could be some reasons. But I also want to participate in answering the question. These IEBC's commissioners in the world, there is no country that is 100% happy when the Electoral Commission makes an announcement about the results. You can take the United States, you can go to Mali, you can come here to Uganda, Ethiopia, all countries. Once a winner has been declared, there is always that turmoil, there is always that dissatisfaction. Fred, this is because, especially in Africa, the winner is going to control huge resources. And how does a winner divide country resources? The fear for us, the fear for this country. And William Ruto tried to allay those fears. He said, I will not victimize you, and I will do, I will carry out development in the whole country in fairness. Whether that will happen again, we have to wait for the 100 days, because he already has a number of executive orders, he said, that he wants to issue. So we will start seeing change immediately if he is finally, declared the president. So the problem is not really the fact that the chairman has come out and announced the results. What people are haggling with and really paining about is, will this president consider our region? Will he build the roads? Will he allow us to have clean water? Will our men and women who are against him face his wrath? These are the issues. In democratic institutions like the United States, you don't care what Trump is going to do. He will take people to Capitol Hill, and they will do what they have to do, and they will still try to charge him in the courts of law. Will that happen here? We have seen that in South Africa as well. That a former president was actually charged in the court. Will that happen in this country? So I think the commissioners, their independence and how they are perceived, the issue is not how they declare the results. The more important issue is, will the winner be fair or he will be unfair to the
But
people.
Fred, I think that's a
There
separate
also seems
issue.
to be an anticipation for another press briefing coming from the same spot where the IEBC, the 4 IEBC commissioners addressed the media yesterday.
Must be coincidental.
And, our team is also there, and we'll be bringing
There's
that
another
to you
bombshell
as well. Yes.
No, I just wanted to say what Wakili is saying is important, but that's a separate issue. I mean, the issue of what the winner is going to do, I think it's a separate discussion. I think Kenyans also want to ensure that whoever is declared the winner truly earns the title democratically elected.
Yes.
And I think that is the role and the mandate of IBC, to facilitate elections in a manner that
Hence
they're
the
going
question
to
on
be.
the dissatisfaction by the persistent dissatisfaction on the performance of the electoral body, because over the years there hasn't been an instance where Kenyans were generally happy with the work of the commission.
I mean, just because, like I said, we've not attained the level of perfection yet in our electoral process. You remember the last time people had an issue with tallying. I mean, from the Supreme Court, 2017 Supreme Court ruling, part of the problem was there was no public portal. Now this time we had a public portal. There was the issue of transmission. This time, since we've gotten transmission right, seems like we are making this progress incrementally and gradually, not at once. People will continue raising these concerns until we have a body that is...
Would you, for example, offer yourself for that position? If you are offered the job, would you take it as an IBC chairperson?
Yes, I think it requires people with integrity, people who truly believe in this country. I will take it up.
Yeah.
They also need stamina, don't forget.
Yes,
Would you disperse? Would you take up that position as IEBC chairperson?
If I were a lawyer and have the requirements to be,
But you don't need to be a lawyer. I think
to
more
be
than
the
being a
chairman,
lawyer, I
you
think
need
you
to.
need integrity more than anything else.
No, I mean, if I had
It's a requirement in
if I had
the
the
Constitution.
qualifications, I'm a lawyer and I've got what it takes. It's a job I'll take. But as soon as I take it, I'll know that it's a life and death position. Because you've had people being either assassinated or killed or disappeared. A returning
Alleged.
officer was found yesterday. You remember the case of Msando. And then also that job doesn't have, there's no security. Because you may do your level best today, but the following day, you find Mr. Raila said that you must go home. There is a lot of demonstrations and you actually go home. But still, addressing that germane issue you raise about these electoral bodies globally, let's go to the states. When in Georgia, when they said that Trump doesn't have a certain number of votes, there's a recording where he actually called one officer in the state and said that please look for me a number of votes somewhere. Just look for them somewhere and deliver them somewhere. And then they were insisting that because you're in my party, you are Republicans, you must go the extra mile and do these things. But in my view, when you are heading a body like IBC, your responsibility is not to make friends. Your responsibility is to run an election and declare a winner. And everybody, almost 90% of the time, anybody who loses an election will blame the electoral body. They will not blame the voters. They will blame the people who are managing the election. So that is something that we must be prepared to deal with, which is why, as we've said times above number, predictable systems, they must be in place so that every single stakeholder can actually touch those systems, can socialize with them. So the only thing we don't know is the person who is going to win. Now, this small margin that Ruto won with is a very good thing because it means that it's very competitive and that is a best practice all over the world. Somebody gets 51 and another one gets 49, which is a very good thing. And President-elect Ruto last evening made a very powerful statement. He reassured Kenyans that I don't care whether or not you voted for me. I don't care whether or not you've been stepping on my toes in my position as a DP. I'm going to serve all Kenyans. And the pertinent issue that the lawyers indicated, although you notice he didn't answer your question whether they can work for IBC, but the pertinent issue, he evaded it, as most lawyers may want to do. But the important question is about resource allocation. What Mora wants, or Wanjiro, or Nafula, or Anyango, is that President-elect Ruto will ensure that the resource allocation in Kenya reflects the face of Kenya.
Okay, and in a short while we'll be getting clarity from the 4 IEBC commissioners on the opaque statement that they made yesterday about the process of declaration being opaque towards the end. But I think it was Wakili Nyaribo who mentioned that they need any person working for the commission needs to put the country first. But these are Kenyans. They have feelings. They have political affiliations and allegiances as well. Don't you think that probably the expectation is a bit too much on the commissioners? Because I've seen people saying, no, this commissioner is actually affiliated to this side, this other commissioner used to work for this person, and hence the reason why they're coming out this time?
I mean, I don't think Kenyans are wrong to expect certain levels of standards from those commissioners. I think Kenyans are right, because election, even though I think we are jumping the gun by talking about the person elected and what he's going to do, election is extremely important because it provides us with a mechanism and an opportunity for peaceful and democratic rotation of leadership. And we know how important leadership is. Yes, reallocation of resources, but also just many other important elements of leadership. And so that is why we need to place high expectations and have high standards for these commissioners.
Let's listen into what the commissioners have to say.
Ready?